will the minister take care of the interest? Thank you.
Senator Onyonka.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me the opportunity to raise a supplementary question to the CS. CS, first of all, I want to welcome you as my CS because we come from the same county, but professionally I'm happy. I'm declaring my interest, Mr. Speaker. The question I wanted to ask CS is that given the fact that you realize we are having a challenge on the housing problem within these institutions, has the ministry done an audit to find out, for example, how many hostels do all our TVETs need? And most probably, I'm sure CS, you know, even all our universities have no housing facilities or hostels. What is the most probable resolution or solution would you offer this country in terms of either systematically spread out over a period of time so that we can then solve the issue of the deficit of all our universities and technical vocational training institutes where our children, young children, have no places to stay? And I'm sure, like you had Honorable Boni Halwala state, that even when these young men and women are going for this training, these untoward issues of alcohol abuse and social dysfunction, if we had hostels which are managed properly and were observing the law, we would actually make our children are responsible and they worked hard. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Gataya. Senator Mofire.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question is written to the predecessor to the current minister came here, and I had the same question. There is this school called Kamutwado Primary School, which was allocated 20 million. 2 million was advanced. That was 2019-2020 financial year. And up to now, that school has not gotten the balance of 80 million. That is 2019-2020 financial year. The predecessor, Honorable Machogu, the CS Machogu, had promised to give them balance. I don't know whether in your archives you have that information, Honorable Waziri. There is also the Raka Technical College, which the community and the board would want it elevated to the National Polytechnic, because that is the only technical that serves quite a very huge population, the entire lower part of Eastern Province and some part of Kambani and some parts of Maua. So the community and the board would request that technical be upgraded to the National Polytechnic to serve the intended purpose. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Bone.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. CS, let's admit it. From your table here, the school needs 12.9 billion shillings in pending bills. And CS, you want to give them 145 million per month for 6 months. That is a total of 870 million shillings. In view of the paltry 207 million that they are able to generate on their own, let's admit it, the college is insolvent. Can you make an undertaking, Minister, because you can't do it now, that a few weeks or months from now, you will present to the public a comprehensive strategy of how you want to rid this problem of insolvency at the Technical University College. Having said that, allow me to make a passing remark, briefly, Speaker, that the government must do something so that you talk to parents that it is not a must that every child gets a university degree. The courses that were being offered by the Kenya Polytechnic that was converted were equally competitive in the job market. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable CS, you may now proceed to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To Professor Kamar's question, how much space we have in the mid-level colleges. Mr. Speaker, we are spaces available to almost 1 million in TVETs. This is because of the structure of the programs that are offered. As I indicated, we have modularized those programs, and so students can come in and out. And remember, when TVETs were formed, they were supposed to absorb the students who are not going to universities. Now, in 2024, 2025, we had a total of 375,000 students in TVETs, when the student admission to universities was at 22%, and universities had almost 800,000 students. So the pyramid was inverted. We had more students in universities than in TVETs, when we should be having more students in TVETs than universities. So we started a program of increasing the enrollment of these students, and we targeted even above 1 million. When we started in January this year, we've raised the enrollment from 375,000 to almost 700,000 as we speak. And they are all in college, and we do admissions in January, we do admissions in May, we do admissions ongoing every quarter. So there is enough space to admit the students in our institutions, both TVET and VTCs, those ones who do not go to universities. And to Senator Boni Kalwale's recommendation, it is true that some of the courses, because even now universities have a TVET institution within them, so that we have students who go to a university, but they go to the TVET in the university, meaning that these are now courses that we can agree that we need to absorb our students into those universities. And that goes to answer the question of, we have a number of our students or young people between the age of 18 and 35 who are neither in formal school or in formal employment. So they are the ones that are out here, which the TVETs is supposed to absorb and remove them from the streets, so that we can skill them to be able to play a role in the economy, so that we have plumbers, we have electricians, we have engineers, they can progress, and there are many other IT programs that we are offering in that space. So it is important that all of us start working. In fact, the issue of enrollment to TVETs is being spearheaded in conjunction with NGAO, because we are using an all-of-government approach, and we're ensuring that these people, when they go to barazas, they tell the parents what is important, or how useful the courses that would be in those institutions are covered. Apart from that, we have a lot of equipment in those institutions of TVET. So learning on hands-on learning is that much more effective. And recently we passed a policy called dual training policy, where our students would be taught in institutions for 50% of the time, and the other 50% they go to industry. And we are signing collaboration agreements with industry in various places, of the people doing textile, people doing any other industry, so that we can have our children, when they are learning, to learn hands-on. So there's something that we are doing in this space to ensure that we reduce the number of our students who are not skilled. Senator Eddie's question, is there a specific remedy to deal with? Yes, what happened is, for example, in Moi, if you recall, there were students who are doing medicine, and they had been in that institution for 9 years, for courses that were taking 6 years. So they had lost 3 years in that university. So when the strike came, and we came up with a package to resolve the issues of Moi, we also came up with a package to resolve that problem of those medical students, which related to training in the referral hospitals. And we came up with a program where they expanded the program from Moi Referral Hospital to Iten, so that you can be able to do many more students. And because of that, we were able to graduate those students in March this year. The first students graduated in November last year, 28th of November last year, but the medical students and other batch that had remained behind graduated in March this year. So when we come up with a program to ensure that the strike is resolved, we also work towards coming up with a program on how the students who have suffered are going to meet their lecture time so that they can graduate. And what we have come up with is to just agree as Kenyans that we need to resolve the problems early. One of the problems we discovered is that most academic strikes arise out of their CBAs. Now, we found that CBAs are negotiated at the end of their lifespan. Now, when you negotiate a CBA at the end of its lifespan, it means you've not budgeted for it, there's no predictability, you are not aware of what was required, and we've insisted that going forward, the CBAs should be negotiated at the beginning of their lifespan so that we know this is the amount of money we'll need to afford. That way, we can budget for it or plan for it. And I'm glad to note that the CBA for 2025, 2029, they are already negotiating it as we speak so that we can factor it into our next budgets to ensure that the teachers know or the lecturers know what they require. So that is how we are trying to resolve this space, and it is a multi-pronged approach. We have to deal with it because the students who are in these universities are our students. If we don't do something about them, then they suffer. As we indicated, almost 23 of our universities were technically insolvent. If we carried through the insolvency and said these ones are dead, let them go, we'd be having a number of our students not having spaces to go. So we had to make a decision, a hard decision on what we do so that we keep these universities floating, as well as ensure that our students have, they can be able to get their education and graduate. On the question of the interest on the 145 million, what we are doing is negotiate with the institutions. For example, payee is remitted to KRA. So when you don't remit, there is penalty and there is interest. So what we are doing is negotiate with them that let's pay the principal and the interest and penalties is removed, and we have a payment plan that runs several years to be able to bring it up to standard. That's what we are doing with the issue of interest and penalties. The challenges in housing, the ministry has not undertaken an audit of all the universities on the housing that they require, but each university has undertaken their own assessment of the percentage of the universities of the student hostels that they require. And I'm glad to report that because universities are independent institutions under their charter, some of them have done very well. For example, Maseno has done an assessment of how many student hostels they have, and they keep building these hostels every year, including having the capacity to go into the market and getting loan facilities to build the facilities as they continue clearing the loan, and they are doing that. In the cooperative university where we were the other day, and I'm happy to note that recently we were able to enthrone the youngest chancellor in the country, a 36-year-old young man who is working for an international bank. And so these are some of the changes that we are doing to ensure that we get support from various partners. And in that institution, they already signed an agreement, a partnership, an MOU, to have an investor build 7,000 units of their 10,000 students that they have. So each individual university is working towards ensuring that they resolve the housing problem. But also, we are working with the Ministry of Housing under the housing levy to ensure that they can assist us in building the hostels. And we've signed quite a number of agreements with them, and some of the construction of the units have begun. Senator Mofa's issue is specific to some school. I will check. Excuse me. I didn't get the name of the school. The name? Kaputwando.
Araka constituency. That is Kalangachiri location.
Let me undertake to counter-check that information. I have my Director General here, he's taken the notes, and will specifically respond to you. But as you know, in the last 2 years, there has not been any infrastructural funds in the budget. So we were not able to do any support to any institutions on the infrastructure portion. But this year, we put in a portion of infrastructure, and I'm hoping that will cover a good number of the requests and the requisitions that are in place. That, of course, would go to any other that is pending, and we are working on that, including presidential directives that are normally given. On the technical college, Mr. Speaker, there is a specific criteria that is used for us to be able to confirm that a particular TVET institution is ripe for upgrading to national. So once the requisition is made, there is a team that visits the institution and comes up with the report, and based on that report, a CAB memo is then prepared, then we proceed and ensure that it's upgraded. Once you meet the criteria, that includes land space, it includes the number of students that you have, and other, then we'll be able to resolve that. So our team can pay a visit once the request is made, and once we confirm, we'll be able to sort that out and see whether it meets the requirements. On the 145 million to Senator Kalwale's question, the 145 million was support just to the salary, because TUK has only been paying net salary. So we decided, let's give them a grant of 145 million for 6 months, January to June, so that those 6 months, the staff can be paid their gross salary. The 12.9 billion debt we have put a strategic plan in it, and it is stipulated on table number 3 on how we are going to clear it. What we did is we spread that out over the years so that for each portion, for each area, for example, contractors and general creditors, the pending bills are 360 million. So for the year 2025-26, they would be paid 17 million. Then the next payment to them would have been the year 2028-29. So we spread it out. We spread the whole of 12.9 billion over a longer period so that the government can be giving money in each budget year, financial year, so that by 2031 it is cleared as we sort out these other issues that are there. So we have a plan to ensure that we do not allow any of our universities to go down. We have done this for TUK. We've also done it for MOI. It's the same thing. MOI goes all the way to 2028. And that is how we are resolving this particular problem. But over and above that, we're also resolving governance issues, which we discovered is one of the biggest threats to our universities, and also issues relating to them, the universities, not doing enough in research and their niche, so that they can be able to generate more in their A, so that we are able to support our budget in those institutions. Thank you. I submit, Mr. Speaker.
We'll now proceed to question number 060 by the Honorable Senator George Mbugua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I rise to ask question number 60. Part A. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide data on the enrollment of children with hearing impairment in pre-primary and in grades 1, 2, and 3 of lower primary across special schools, integrated special units, and regular mainstream schools from 2022 to date? And B, could the Cabinet Secretary provide an overview of the government's policy on integration of learners with hearing impairment in pre-primary and lower primary education, including details on the measures in place to ensure that the learners receive adequate support and consideration in the mainstream education setting? And C, what is the Ministry's position on the placement of these learners in pre-primary and lower primary boarding schools? And could the Cabinet Secretary outline any specific guidelines or recommendations from the Ministry addressing the matter? And lastly, what provisions and resources does the government provide to support the education of these learners in pre-primary and lower primary without necessitating their placement in boarding schools? And could the Cabinet Secretary also state the actions being taken to assure parents that boarding schools are not the only viable option for these learners? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable CS, you may now proceed to respond.
Mr. Speaker, to part A of that question, the enrollment of learners with hearing impairment in grades 1, 2, and 3 of lower primary across special schools, integrated special units, and regular mainstream schools from 2022 to date is as follows. 2022-2023, we had 13,099 students. 2023-2024, we had 19,199, and 24-25, we had 11,399. This is the data, Mr. Speaker, that is available on the National Education Management Information System. On data on learners in pre-primary institutions, we are now working with the Council of Governors to collect data on learners in pre-primary institutions which are under the county governments. This data will then be populated on the National Education Management Information System. The main policy, Mr. Speaker, that's question number 2, on special needs education in Kenya is in the sector policy for learners and trainees with disability 2018. This policy document provides a key provision of the Constitution under Article 53(1)(b) of the Constitution that provides that every child has a right to free and compulsory basic education. Article 54(1)(b) of the Constitution says that a person with any disability is entitled to access educational institutions and facilities for persons with disabilities that are integrated into society to the extent compatible with the interests of that person. The essence of the policy, Mr. Speaker, is that learners with disabilities, including those with hearing impairment, are only integrated in regular schools if there is adequate support and an accessible environment that will enable their learning. The ministry provides top-up capitation to learners in special needs education institutions. At the primary school level, Mr. Speaker, the approval rate of capitation is 1,420 per learner per year. Learners with special needs, however, receive a top-up of 2,300 per learner per year. Those in boarding schools are allocated 11,000 per learner per year to subsidize for boarding costs. At the secondary school level, Mr. Speaker, the approval rate of capitation is 22,244 per learner, with a top-up of 35,730 per learner for schools with special needs. The top-up grants, Mr. Speaker, are meant to support the provision of specialized learning materials, assistive devices and technologies, and including personnel emoluments for non-teaching staff and food subsidy for the learners mainly in the special needs education boarding schools. The ministry also implements both age-based and stage-based curriculum to support learners with special needs. Age-based curriculum applies to learners who proceed to the next level depending on their age. Those with severe disabilities proceed to the stage-based curriculum. They only proceed to the next stage after they master certain skills and capacities. These stages are foundational, intermediate, and pre-vocational and vocational stages, Mr. Speaker. Question number 3. Mr. Speaker, the sector policy of learners and trainees with disabilities 2018 provides for disability inclusive education, meaning that a learner can be placed in any school of choice as long as the school has a requisite support system that will enable the learner to access education. Placement options available for learners include special schools, integrated schools, and regular schools with special units. For lower primary boarding schools, assessment of learners is done by education assessment and resource centers to determine the type of disability, after which placement is done accordingly. The assessment report, Mr. Speaker, informs the kind of intervention and support required by the learner. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, after assessment and placement of learners, the government provides the following to learners in primary schools. At the primary school level, the approval rate of capitation, as I indicated, is 1,420 with a top-up of 2,300. Boarding schools is 11,000. And after assessment and determination of the type of need, the SNE learner, the ministry, through Kenya Institute of Special Education, provides assistive devices like hearing aids, among others. I submit, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mbugo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On my supplementary question, CS, I would want you to tell this House what measures have been put in place to ensure inclusive infrastructure in this school, and 2,